What are some great stretches to improve your posture? Well, let's have a look.
Ask Yuri. You've got a health and fitness question? I've got an answer.
Hey guys, Yuri came here. Welcome to another episode of Ask Yuri. I've got a cool question from Bill today who wants to know, can I please list 5, not 6, 5 stretches or hints to improve my posture? So again, he doesn't really delineate between his posture and the torso and the hips. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna show you a couple different ones that you can do on a day-to-day basis, whether you're in the office sitting at the chair or if you're just walking around, and we'll kind of tackle everything together. Cool? So let's work from the top and then work down, okay? Because we want to look at opening up the chest and opening up the hips, which are the two areas that really get tight when we're kind of hunched over and doing our work day to day. So the first one we're going to do is, I don't even know what the name of this stretch would be, but basically what we're going to do is we're going to take our hands, put them behind our back, and kind of stretch out or open up our torso. Now what that's going to do is it opens up the pec minor, which is this little muscle that kind of attaches up here. And this is the muscle that gets really short when we're at a desk all day. So it naturally pulls our shoulders forward. So what we want to do is we want to do a stretch that's going to open up our chest in a safe manner. Because you've probably seen stretches where people kind of hang on the door and they're kind of pulling their arm back. Well, the problem with that stretch is it actually puts a lot of strain on a naturally unstable joint, which is your shoulder. So by doing this kind of hands behind the back, clasping like that type of stretch, it's a lot safer and much more effective at opening up the chest. Cool? The second stretch we want to look at is simply extension. So again, as I mentioned, we looked at the fact that we spend a lot of time in flexion, in this kind of flex position when we're sitting down. Simply by opposing that movement in a type of yoga pose, you can actually be very effective. So if you've ever done yoga and you've done a downward dog and then you've gone into an upward dog, that's the pose where we're gonna really look at extending, kind of opening up the entire front side of the torso. That's gonna open up our core, it's gonna open up our abdominal muscles, and open up a lot of those muscles that get tightened when we are in a sitting position all day long. A really simple thing you can do at your desk, beside your bed, very simple strategy. Now let's work our way down a little bit further. Let's get to the hips, which is where a lot of the problems start to really aggravate a lot of people, especially when it comes to low back pain. So we want to open up the hip flexors. The hip flexors originate in the low back and they attach to your thighs. So they kind of have a really nasty pulling effect on the low back when they get tight. So a simple stretch to begin with is a very basic hip flexor stretch. Here, the focus is on really aligning your body up. So we open up the front of the hip, and one way to improve the contraction is actually by contracting the glute on that same side. There's a notion in physiology or anatomy where if you contract one muscle group, the opposing muscle group has to relax. That's known as reciprocal inhibition. So by doing a hip flexor stretch where you're actually contracting that same side glute, you allow the hip flexor to relax even further. Cool? So all of these stretches can be done, before we move on to the final two, they can be done several times a day, and that's actually the benefit is, the real benefit is doing them several times a day for about 20 to 30 seconds each time, okay? Moving on from the hip flexors, I'm gonna show you 2 more stretches. The next one is the quad stretch. So essentially you've probably seen this, if you remember soccer practices way back when you were a kid, your coach said, grab your foot, pull your leg back. That's a specific quad stretch. And what that's going to do is that's going to now lengthen the front of the thigh, the muscles in the front of the thigh, as well as the front of the hip a little bit further as well. And again, this is another nice stretch if you find that the front of your legs are getting tight, be it from sitting or other activity. And this is also really helpful for a lot of people that are very active, so runners and stuff like that, where there's a lot of stress on the muscles of the front of the thigh, and there can be a lot of tension and stiffness there. So that's a simple stretch, obviously both sides, left and right, 25 to 30 seconds is great. Do a couple sets several times a day, especially if you're in a seated position. Cool? And then our final stretch is a hamstring stretch. So the hamstrings are on the back of the thigh, and these get tight when we are sitting because naturally when we sit, our legs are bent, and when our legs are bent, the hamstrings are shortest. So if we sit like that all the time, they're naturally going to get shorter and stiffer. So a really simple way to overcome that is to do the opposite movement again. So again, I'm going to show you some really cool, more of a dynamic hamstring stretch where you're actually activating the opposing muscle group while you're stretching your hamstring. And again, the key is to focus on good form. Okay, so as you're doing that extension out of the knee, you're focused on contracting the top of your thigh or your quad and allowing your leg to fully straighten so you feel that stretch in the back side of your leg. All right, so Bill, those are 5 stretches. I think if you do them, again, these will take maybe, if you did them several times a day, maybe a couple minutes, maybe 5 minutes out of your day, but it will make a huge difference in your overall level of suppleness and kind of improving your posture. Because remember, posture is simply a result of muscle tension. So if you want to improve your posture, get some of these muscles on the back a little bit tighter, open up the muscles in the front, and that is how you do it. Cool? So if that's helped you out, that's awesome. If you guys have any other questions you'd like answered, I'll do my best to answer them in an upcoming Ask Yuri video. You can go over to the page just below here, ask me your question, and again, I'll do my very best to answer it in the very near future. Thanks again for watching. I'm Yuri Kane, and I'll see you soon. Focus is taking, a very small, narrow range of what needs to be kind of dealt with and putting all of your energy into that. Some people talk about, the flow states or being in the zone.